was the favorite concubine of the Eastern Palace. Though my background was humble, the Crown Prince doted on me like a treasure, and our only child was born to me. Gazing at the sleeping faces of the father and son, I sighed contentedly, knowing my good fortune was only just beginning. Suddenly, my son opened his eyes. "Mother, I've been reborn. In 3 months, father will raise an army to usurp the throne, and the first person he kills will be you." What nonsense was this child spouting? I helplessly tried to tuck his small hand, clutching my sleeve, back under the quilt, but when I pulled, his grip didn't loosen. "Mother, mother, I missed you so much." His voice was as weak as that of a long-ill person, yet he clung to me tightly. Just before bed, he'd still been a naive, cheerful child. Now, he looked as if he'd suffered a terrible fright. His lips trembled, and his eyes were bloodshot. Afraid of disturbing the Crown Prince, Alden Chi, who was resting beside us, I quickly motioned for Theodore to be quiet and carried him out of the bedroom. "Mother, I'm telling the truth." Theodore hurried to defend himself before we even stepped through the door. At 2 years old, his speech was muddled. I listened patiently for a long time before finally understanding the gist. He said Alden Chi would raise an army to usurp the throne in 3 months, and that very night, I would become a corpse. I hid behind the rockery and saw father come out of your room. You were carried away, your face was purple, and blood was streaming from your nose and mouth. A few days later, we moved into the palace. They made me call Father Emperor father and forbade me from mentioning you ever again. Theodore spoke each word slowly, as if fearing I wouldn't believe him. Of course I didn't. Who in the Eastern Palace didn't know that the Crown Prince and Crown Princess were estranged? The true favorite of the palace was me, Violet. The concubine the Crown Prince had met among commoners. Though my title was low, Alden Chi held me in the palm of his hand. My food, clothing, and belongings were almost on par with the Crown Princess's. How could he possibly kill me? Theodore went on, unheeding. But Emperor Father changed. He rarely came to see me. Later, Theodore fell ill, so ill, I froze. No mother in the world could hear her child speak of illness without feeling a pang of worry, even if it was just a dream. Subconsciously, I followed his words and asked, "Ill, where was your father? Did he not send imperial doctors to treat you?" He lowered his head, his mood growing even gloomier. Emperor Father and the imperial doctors were all in the noble consort's palace. I heard she was going to give me a little brother. Noble consort. The Eastern Palace only had me and the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess would naturally become Empress in the future. Who was this noble consort? "Is this noble consort someone from this palace?" I pressed, but Theodore only shook his head. "The matron covered my mouth to stop me from calling for you, but I was so cold all over, I couldn't help it." He clung tightly to my neck, his small hands icy cold. He murmured, "As I called for you, I really saw you." My nose tingled. I stroked his back and comforted him repeatedly. "Don't be afraid, you had a nightmare, everything's fine." I laid the tearful Theodore back in his small bed. But an unexplainable sense of unease lingered in my heart. Yet when my eyes fell on the pearl jewelry set on the table, I laughed at my own unfounded worries. This jewelry was a gift from the palace. By rights, it should have gone to the Crown Princess, but Alden Chi had simply said, "Pearls are bright and vivid, they suit Violet better," and sent it straight to my room. Alden Chi doted on Theodore too. Father and son were inseparable, as if they wanted to spend every waking moment together. Talk of poisoning and premature death was just the nonsense of a child's dream. I lay down beside Alden Chi, but for some reason, I couldn't sleep soundly. In my dazed state, I heard faint voices coming from the outer hall. I woke with a start and reached out only to find the other side of the pillow empty. "Your Highness, the dead soldiers have been recruited and are all stationed outside the suburban barracks. I'm still negotiating with the Imperial Guards," said Han Li, the chief guard of the Eastern Palace. "How much longer?" Alden Chi asked. "About 3 months. Han Li paused. "Forgive me for speaking bluntly, Your Highness. The Crown Princess's family is the Duke of Su, who commands heavy troops. Why don't you seek help from your father-in-law instead of risking yourself by raising dead soldiers and bribing Imperial Guards?" After a moment of silence, Alden Chi let out a soft laugh. "Have you ever thought What if the Duke of Su, whose family has been loyal for 3 generations, refuses to join my rebellion? By the time Alden Chi returned, my back was soaked with sweat. Violet, he called my name softly. Your eyelashes are fluttering like butterfly wings. Did I wake you? I rubbed my eyes, pretending to have just woken up, and pouted. Your Highness is freezing cold. How could I not wake up? Alden Chi stretched out his long arm and pulled me back into his embrace. Then warm me up, he said, burying his face in the crook of my neck. His cool nose brushed against my skin like the tongue of a mischievous little beast. The room was filled with tenderness, just like countless other nights with him. As my name suggests, I was never a lady of noble birth. I had been a songstress by the Xuanyang River. Following the madam's earnest instructions, I boarded a fancy boat filled with distinguished guests. I had intended to serve them carefully, but by accident. I'd thrown myself in front of Alden Chi to block an arrow shot from nowhere. Heaven knew, I'd only lunged forward to grab a jade Rui scepter in the hands of the Xuanyang governor, a prize promised to whoever could seize it. Only later did I learn that the elegant young man I'd pushed aside was the heir to the throne, the Crown Prince. Who would dare assassinate the Crown Prince? I'd gushed, sipping the medicinal soup he spoon-fed me, confused, naturally. My dear brothers who also want to be Crown Prince. Alden Chi put down the soup bowl, his eyes cold. The bond of royal blood is not even worth the kindness of a courtesan. I'd stolen glances at him, guilty yet delighted to have stumbled into such good fortune. It was all Theodore's nightmare's fault, otherwise I wouldn't have tossed and turned, nor would I have heard his conversation with Han Li. But that conversation matched Theodore's nightmare perfectly. For days after, I put on a calm face, but my heart was in turmoil. Theodore, though young, had a big heart. He gradually forgot about the dream and went back to playing carefree every day. Miss Violet, the maid Baoyan's shout made me jump. The young prince has offended the crown princess. You must come quickly, next month. Alden Chi's former teacher, Elder Shui, would return to the capital. He planned to invite the Shui family to the palace for a welcome feast, and the crown princess had been busy preparing for it these days. Theodore had always listened to me and kept a respectful distance from his stepmother. How could he have offended her? I rushed into the garden and saw Theodore standing there, at a loss, apologizing. The crown princess ignored him, bending over only to examine the trampled flower shoots. Can't you watch where you're playing ball? These jade orchids are what Her Highness has tended to for months. She's going to give them to the ladies of the Shui family. The crown princess's dowry maid, Yu Ying, snapped. Her round face was stretched into a long frown. When she saw me coming, her anger flared even more. How convenient of you to arrive, Miss Violet. Did you and your son stage this little drama together? His Highness forbade you from attending the family feast. You should go ask him for an explanation, not take it out on Her Highness's orchids. She loves these flowers more than anything. Yu Ying planted her hands on her hips, emphasizing the words family feast. She thought I was picking a fight because of this, and to be fair, Alden Chi had never hidden his for me. He had boldly taken me to countless occasions where concubines were not supposed to appear, but this time was different. Why can't Theodore and I go? I pretended to take her words as a joke and pouted. After all, it was thanks to Elder Shui that I met His Highness. A flash of impatience crossed Alden Chi's face. He closed the poetry collection in his hands and regained his usual calm expression. Elder Shui once served as grand tutor, and is an old friend of the Yi family, the crown princess's family. I'm afraid their meeting with you and Theodore would only make them uncomfortable. The connections between noble families were like ancient trees with deep roots. I was like a floating duckweed even with the crown prince's favor. I could never truly fit in. As someone who'd made a living by pleasing others, I was quick to read the room, so I agreed politely, not thinking too much of it. Alden Chi was the legitimate son of the Empress, yet he was not favored by the Emperor. After the Empress passed away, Elder Shui, then Grand Tutor to the Crown Prince, became his only patron, and thus a thorn in the side of others. Before long, Elder Shui was convicted of a trivial offense, dismissed from his post, and exiled from the capital. Alden Chi had spoken out of turn in anger, offending the Emperor. His authority to oversee state affairs was revoked, and he was sent to the remote Xuanyang region to handle messy local affairs. Officially, it was training. In reality, it was to give him an excuse to make mistakes. So the emperor could justifiably depose the legitimate heir and appoint a concubine's son instead. That arrow that had pierced my right shoulder was probably from his brothers. They'd grown impatient and wanted to take a risky chance at seizing power. In Xuanyang, Alden Chi had lived in constant anxiety, seeing potential assassins in everyone. Only by holding me in his arms every night could he fall asleep. When spring came, Han Li had rushed to deliver news excitedly. The Duke of Su says his only daughter has taken a liking to your highness. The emperor has granted the marriage. We can return to the capital. I'd heard Alden Chi say that the Yi family had led troops for generations and achieved great military merit. If the Duke of Su had a son, Alden Chi would have even feared the throne was too hot to handle. With the Yi family's support, the Eastern Palace would not be replaced anytime soon. Yet Alden Chi's expression was not as relieved as expected. He stood with his hands behind his back, gazing into the distance, and let out a dry laugh. The Duke of Su really knows how to choose his timing, offering help in my hour of need, so I'll be grateful to him for the rest of my life. But did anyone ever ask for my wish? Han Li hesitated. Your Highness, are you talking about Miss Violet? When you return for the wedding, you can take her with you. I was outside the door. When I heard this, my breath caught. I had originally come to tell him I was 2 months pregnant. Seeing my chance to escape my humble status slipping away, I stepped into the hall in one stride, knelt down with a sorrowful expression, and pleaded, Violet knows her place is lowly and her fortune meager, but I carry your highness's child in my womb. I only beg you to let me stay by your side. I am willing to serve you and your principal wife as a maid or slave. Alden Chi ignored the look Han Li sent him and reached out to help me up. Silly words, he said. My marriage to the Yi family is merely a political alliance. You need not defer to her from now on. He gently brushed away the tears that I'd calculated to fall at just the right angle. Yet there was a fleeting coldness in his tone. Alden Chi kept his word. After returning to the capital, he treated me with the same affection as before, so much so that rumors of him favoring his concubine over his wife spread. At first, I lived in fear that the crown princess, Priscilla Yi, would come to make trouble. Fortunately, this noble lady had a generous temperament, and we had always gotten along peacefully. But these jade orchids must have been truly important to her. Normally as composed as a lady in a painting, she now had furrowed brows and beads of sweat on her forehead. Knowing I was in the wrong, I said timidly, How many of your highness's orchids did Theodore damage? I'll immediately send someone to buy new ones. Yuing gave me a rude sideways glance. Each jade orchid costs 100 taels of silver. Moreover, these are tribute gifts from Nanju. Even if you had the money, you might not be able to buy them. I turned to Baoyang. Take that entire set of pearl jewelry, convert it all to silver, and give it to Aunt Li in the kitchen. Tell her to hurry and take care of this. Baoyang looked confused. I pushed her. Didn't you complain the other day that Aunt Li's younger brother is a flower grower? He's been asking her to beg people everywhere to take over supplying the Eastern Palace with seasonal flowers, hasn't he? Baoyang suddenly understood. She slapped her forehead. Right, it's kind of you to remember, miss. Priscilla Yi lifted her eyes slightly. Seeing that I was not pretending, her brows relaxed a little. She counted silently and said, Very well, 6 plants. I quickly bowed, then grabbed Theodore, who looked as wilted as a frostbitten eggplant, and fled as if granted amnesty. I stuffed the pearl jewelry into Baoyan's hands. She was still staring blankly. I thought the crown princess would take this chance to make a scene. Is that all? Are your eyes just for show? I said, growing more and more distressed at the thought of the jewelry. I gave Theodore, aided culprit, a hard pinch. She was clearly only worried about her orchids. She didn't even glance at me properly. Baoyang put away the jewelry and pursed her lips. Everyone says the crown prince doesn't favor the crown princess. I don't think the crown princess cares much about him either. I suddenly pressed a finger to her lips. Yes, don't gossip about the lord and lady. Don't stir up trouble. Baoyang parroted the words I often repeated, then lifted the curtain and went out. The crown prince favored me. The crown princess was magnanimous. If it weren't for Theodore's strange words, I would have truly believed I'd accumulated good fortune over several lifetimes. Theodore's little face was red from my pinch. He held back his tears and snuggled up to me. Mother, I won't go near those flowers anymore. Don't abandon Theodore, please, you little rascal. I pulled him into my arms. Amidst the panic that had plagued me for days, a sudden resolve welled up inside me, rebirth or nightmare, whatever it was. I had heard with my own ears that he would stage a rebellion in 3 months. I couldn't control how it would end, but no one would harm me and my son in the chaos. But why would Alden Chi kill me? Could it have something to do with that noble consort? I tossed and turned with these thoughts, getting nowhere. The Xue family had only been allowed to return to the capital under the pretense of seeking medical treatment, as soon as they entered the city. Alden Chi had invited them to stay in the palace. I took Theodore to pass the time in the study, not wanting to force my way into their gathering. I pulled out a poetry collection that Alden Chi often carried with him. Just as I was about to open it, footsteps approached from outside the window. It was Priscilla Yi leading the Xue family to see the jade orchids. Theodore and I huddled by the window, peeking out. Alden Chi had his left arm around Elder Xue, and on his right were the eldest son of the Xue family and his wife. The couple chatted and laughed with Alden Chi from time to time, looking very familiar. Priscilla Yi followed behind, holding hands with the young lady of the Xue family and chatting animatedly. Sigh. Most children from noble families had known each other since childhood. It was hard on Theodore to have a mother with no family background like me. Suddenly, Theodore darted behind me and clung to my leg. The noble consort. The noble consort is here. My hand trembled, and a yellowed paper-cut portrait slipped from the poetry collection and fluttered to the ground. It looked exactly like the woman chatting and laughing outside. The Xue family had been in the palace for 18 days. In those 18 days, I hadn't seen Alden Chi once. Even Baoyang muttered that even if Elder Xue had once educated and supported Alden Chi, there was no need to stay with his family day and night. I embroidered Theodore's underclothes absent-mindedly, unable to get rid of the words I'd overheard 2 days earlier. Since Alden Chi hadn't come to see me in days, Baoyang was more anxious than I was. She insisted on urging me to send ginseng soup to him. My dear miss, why are you so sharp at times and so muddled at others? She pulled me away from Theodore's bedside and thrust a food box into my hands. What good is it to hover around the child all day? The Crown Prince's favor is your only hope. He will have a harem of 3 palaces and 6 courtyards in the future. If you don't fight for the position of secondary consort now, do you want to wait until you're old and faded, forgotten by him? I held the food box. Torn between going in and leaving outside the door of the diligent governance pavilion, Alden Chi had always hated being disturbed while handling affairs. Very few servants were left to wait outside the pavilion. But that paper-cut portrait burned in my mind like a ghost fire, making me restless. I needed to confirm the truth urgently. Squeak! The window lattice was pushed open. I dodged behind a pillar, my heart pounding like a thief. From inside came a long, contented sigh from Alden Chi. Iris, every day and every night. I wish the person in front of me was you. Through the crack in the window, I saw Alden Chi playing with a lock of hair wrapped around his fingertips, whispering. We grew up together. How could you not understand my heart? I only married the Yi woman to secure my position as Crown Prince, so that I can ascend to the throne in the future, clear my mentor's name of false charges, and bring you back to the capital. The woman sitting on Alden Chi's lap looked up. Her eyes were misty with tears, and her lips were swollen like ripe cherries. It was exactly the noble consort Theodore had pointed out, the young lady of the Xue family, Iris Xue. I felt as if I'd been struck by lightning. I could barely hold onto the food box. Could it be that Theodore's rebirth wasn't just a child's dream? Had Alden Chi long been intimate with Iris Xue, so he immediately made her a noble consort after ascending the throne? But what did that have to do with me? Iris Xue sniffled. But I'm afraid you'll start taking this fake marriage seriously, develop real feelings for Sister Yi, and forget about Iris suffering in that bitter, cold place. She tapped Alden Chi's chest as she spoke. Brother Alden, that remote, desolate place is no place for humans. I can't stay there for a single day longer. Alden Chi caught her hand and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, I already have a plan. Once the great matter is done, I will welcome you into the palace in grand style. You're just trying to please me." Iris Shui leaned into his arms. "I also heard that there's a favored concubine in the Eastern Palace." Alden Chi froze. He pressed his lips together and said, "She's just a songstress. I only treat her like a stray cat or dog I feed on the street. You don't need to care about her. I originally used her to keep the Yi woman in check, first, to prevent the Duke of Su from really thinking I'm easy to control and using his favor to coerce me. Second, if the Yi woman gets jealous and causes a scene because of this, plus the fact that she has no children, the civil and military officials of the court will have nothing to say when I depose her as queen in the future." Iris Shui let out a soft gasp, looking alarmed. "Depose her as queen? Isn't that too cruel to Sister Yi?" Alden Chi flicked her nose lightly and laughed. "You're just too kind-hearted. I almost forgot you and the Yi woman were close friends since childhood. But if my mentor hadn't been demoted because of me, the position of crown princess would have been yours in the first place. Besides, the Yi woman has the Duke of Su, who commands military power, behind her. I don't want to be controlled by others for my entire life like my father. I will definitely take back that military power someday." My heart turned icy cold as I listened. Theodore had only told me before that after he entered the palace with Alden Chi, he never saw his stepmother again. I hadn't thought anything of it. Priscilla Yi and I had no friendship. And as the daughter of an important minister and the future queen, why would she care about him? Now it seemed that by then, Priscilla Yi had already been unable to protect herself. My sudden death was most likely the first step in framing her and the Yi family. I stumbled back to the West Garden, grabbed Theodore, who had just fallen asleep, and shook him awake. "In your dream, what happened to the crown princess later?" He was still groggy, and his answer was no different from before. "Before Mother died, my stepmother had already been locked up." Pressed by my repeated questions, Theodore seemed to remember something else. "Later, Father said she was jealous and vicious, that she had harmed people's lives. He said he would never see her again. He was just waiting for the noble consort to give birth to a child, so he could make her queen." So it was true. I clung to the bedpost to keep from falling. I was well aware of the gap between Alden Chi and me. I also understood what the great matter he mentioned, rebellion, meant. The crown prince was afraid of delays, so he planned to raise an army to usurp the throne. It was a crime of treason. If he succeeded, all would be well. If he failed, his entire family would be executed. Even so, I had never thought of reporting him or running away. I didn't dare to hope for an equal, loving marriage with him. But he had rescued me from a life of servitude and let Theodore grow up in luxury. I should have shared both his blessings and his misfortunes. How ridiculous. I had truly believed I'd met a noble person who would bring me good fortune for the rest of my life, never realizing I'd been nothing but a disposable pawn at his fingertips all along. The carved railings and jade inlays of the West Garden suddenly seemed like a trap closing in on me. I couldn't help but shiver. What should I do? Run away? I had been pampered by Alden Chi in the Eastern Palace. I didn't even know which direction the capital's gates faced. Taking Theodore with me, we would never escape. Besides, since the day my father had sold me to the flower house, I'd had no home to return to. Where could I run? If I didn't run, could I really change my fate? But behind this fate lay the intrigue of the imperial court and the strife of powerful nobles. I had learned to read from erotic poems and songs, beyond being beautiful, having a sweet voice, and pleasing others. What else could I do? Should I curry more favor with Alden Chi, begging for a shred of his mercy, but using my lowly life to pin the heinous crime of being unvirtuous and poisoning the favored concubine on the only daughter of the Yi family? Alden Chi truly had no need to spare me. Hiss, a needle pricked my finger as I embroidered. I snapped back to reality. Baoyan's urgent voice grew clearer. "Miss Violet, stop daydreaming. The crown princess has summoned you to pay your respects." On the night of Alden Chi's wedding to Priscilla Yi, he had stayed with me. The next day, he had personally exempted me from the ritual of offering tea to the crown princess as a sign of deference. At the time, I had been overwhelmed with gratitude, never realizing I was just bait on a fishhook. meant to provoke Priscilla Yi into a furious outburst, yet Priscilla Yi had readily agreed to his arrangement, and we had lived in mutual non-interference ever since. Why, then, was she summoning me to pay respects today? My heart uneasy, I went to the east courtyard, a place I had never set foot in before. Before I reached the door, a sharp female voice rang out. A mere concubine dares to disregard the crown princess and refuse to come pay her respects. Iris Schwer sat upright on the main seat in the hall, acting as if she were the mistress of the courtyard. Sister Yi is too kind-hearted and lets people walk all over her. Today, I'll seek justice on her behalf. The maids and servants of the east courtyard exchanged glances. Yuying hesitated, then said, "It was His Highness who allowed her not to come. He said she need not perform such empty rituals. As she is raising the young prince, the crown princess also forbade us from complaining about it." Iris Schwer let out a cold snort. A woman of her status is unfit to raise the crown prince's eldest son. In my opinion, the child should be taken away and placed under Sister Yi's care. She caught sight of me standing at the door from the corner of her eye, and her air of authority grew stronger. "Stop lingering there. Today is the anniversary of the late Empress's death. His Highness and Sister Yi went to the palace early. No one will see your pitiful act here. The sun is nice. You'll stand in the courtyard for 3 hours to learn your manners. Think carefully about how to serve your mistress properly." Yuying's voice rose in alarm. "You can't do this. The lady of the west courtyard is the apple of His Highness's eye." Slap. Iris Schwer's delicate eyebrows shot up in anger. She slapped Yuying across the face. "A mere courtesan, what right does she have to be the apple of his eye? My Schwer family is one of the most prestigious in the capital. Can't I even punish her?" Yuying held her cheek, still trying to persuade her. "I know you and the crown princess are as close as sisters, but her life is already hard enough, if His Highness gets angry." Iris Schwer curled her lips in disdain. "You're all cowards. That's why the crown princess is looked down on by a concubine who isn't even a proper mistress." She glanced at the other servants. Mistress and servants share the same fate. If Sister Yi is trampled on by the woman from the west courtyard, what good will it do you? Several maids and servants nodded in agreement, their gazes toward me growing hostile. I couldn't blame them if I hadn't accidentally learned of Alden Chi's plan. I would have definitely thought Iris Schwer was avenging Priscilla Yi, and held Priscilla Yi accountable for her cruelty. The warm sun grew scorching. The courtyard was filled with various types of orchids. Their fragrance made my head feel heavy. I pinched the palm of my hand, focusing my gaze on a single spot, struggling to keep from fainting in the east courtyard. The east courtyard was elegant and simple except for the windows, which were oddly covered with many playful paper cuts, goldfish, magpies, pairs of swallows. I narrowed my eyes. The style and structure of those paper cuts felt inexplicably familiar. Afraid I would exaggerate the incident and complain to Alden Chi, Yuying secretly fanned me while no one was looking. I heard the crown princess grew up in a military camp. I nodded toward the paper cuts on the window. Who would have thought she'd be good at such crafts? "Oh, those are just cuttings Iris made for fun," Yuying said with a forced smile. "But the crown princess treasures them and pasted them all up. When the crown princess first returned to the capital, only Miss Iris was kind to her, so the crown princess treats her very well. When the Schwer family was exiled from the capital, the crown princess sent them gold, silver, and fine fabrics without stop. But today's incident was all Iris's doing. Don't hold it against the crown princess." Yuying had always been straightforward, but these words were spoken hesitantly. Orchids, paper cuts, a friendship like sisters. The Yi family's request for the imperial marriage, Priscilla Yi's indifference toward Alden Chi. A ridiculous suspicion gradually took shape in my mind. Could it be that, Priscilla Yi, my dear lady, you have no idea that the person you've risked everything for is already plotting with your husband to devour you whole? A cold voice sounded behind me. "Yuying, what's going on here?" Alden Chi and Priscilla Yi had returned to the mansion early. Iris Schwer wasn't the least bit flustered. She leisurely changed into another light cyan silk dress. The early spring breeze fluttered her skirt, making her look delicate and charming. When Alden Chi saw me standing in the courtyard in a sorry state, he was about to lose his temper until he saw Iris Schwer. and half his anger vanished. Even Priscilla Yi, who looked confused and helpless, couldn't help but glance at her, her ears turning red. I watched coldly, my suspicion confirmed. Romantic feelings between women were considered unspeakable obscenities in prominent families, but they were nothing new in the red light districts. The courtesan who had taught me had once served the daughter of a wealthy official. I steadied my nerves. And a bold plan took shape in my mind. Your Highness, don't blame Sister Yi. Iris Xue stepped in front of Priscilla Yi, looking righteous. A concubine who is disrespectful to her mistress deserves to be punished. Shouldn't the crown princess be in charge of the inner courtyard's affairs? Impressive. She was after Priscilla Yi's authority to manage the household. Alden Chi immediately understood. He put on a stern face. Priscilla. I was the one who said Violet didn't need to come pay her respects. Are you tormenting her because you hold a grudge against me? I thought you were truly generous and kind-hearted. Turns out you're just putting on an act for others. Your character is unworthy of managing the Eastern Palace's household. Violet. I took the opportunity to roll my eyes and collapsed softly at Priscilla Yi's feet. Your Highness, I whispered weakly, my hands scrambling up along Priscilla Yi's skirt. Finally clinging tightly to her thighs. I must have offended Miss Xue somehow. She said that while Your Highness and the Crown Princess were at the palace, she would make me learn my manners properly. I'm just a lowly woman, some physical suffering is nothing. Please, Your Highness and Crown Princess, don't quarrel with our guest. I knew exactly what I looked like at that moment, typical behavior of a courtesan. Priscilla Yi was shocked. The faint red on her ears spread to her entire face. She quickly helped me up, brushed the dust off my clothes, and shot Iris Xue a slightly reproachful look. Yet in the end, she didn't explain anything to defend herself. TSK, Priscilla Yi truly thought Iris Xue was avenging her, afraid Iris Xue would be blamed by Alden Chi. She planned to take the blame herself, but that wouldn't do. I secretly kicked Yueying and winked at her. Yueying dropped to her knees with a thud, stammering, as soon as Your Highness and the Crown Princess left. Miss Iris ordered us to fetch Miss Violet, she said. She said a courtesan like her wasn't fit to raise the Crown Prince's eldest son. She also said everyone in the East Courtyard was a coward and made Miss Violet stand for 3 hours to set an example for us. Yueying was just as good as Iris Xue at picking out the key points to say. The servants inside and outside the courtyard listened, growing more and more indignant. A guest who had come to visit had no right to meddle in the Eastern Palace's household affairs, even assuming the Crown Princess's authority. Even Alden Chi's expression turned grim. Priscilla Yi's eyes widened in shock, as if she couldn't believe those words had come from Iris Xue's mouth. No, I didn't. That's not what I said. You lowly servant, you're lying through your teeth. Iris Xue panicked. She tugged at Priscilla Yi's sleeve one moment, then tried to move closer to Alden Chi the next. Under everyone's gaze, Alden Chi's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. That's enough, Miss Xue. You should spend more time with your father and less meddling in the inner courtyard's affairs. As for you, Crown Princess, you've failed to discipline your servants. Confine yourself to your quarters for 2 months to reflect. Yueying, your salary will be docked for a year. Before he finished speaking, he grabbed Iris Xue's arm and stormed off. As Yueying poured me tea, she still seethed with anger. It was clearly Miss Iris's fault. What does the Crown Princess have to reflect on? Priscilla Yi shot her a glance, silencing her complaints. I'm sorry, she said, raising her teacup as a substitute for wine, offering me a sincere apology. Iris has always been a bit spoiled. You've been wronged. I traced the rim of my teacup with my finger, speaking softly. I'm afraid the person who owes you an apology is someone else entirely. I vividly recounted the tender promises Alden Chi and Iris Xue had made to each other. Priscilla Yi's grip on her teacup tightened more and more, her thin lips trembled. That's impossible. Iris told me a different story. You can't wake someone who's pretending to sleep. But if I wanted to survive, I had to wake her up. I pulled the poetry collection from my bosom and spread it out before her. The paper-cut portrait in His Highness's book, doesn't it look like it was made by the same person who cut the ones on your windows? When his position as Crown Prince was shaky, no one dared to associate with him. Only the Yi family stepped forward to help him in his hour of need. I'll make a guess. Your father may have done it to stabilize the imperial succession, but weren't you doing it for Iris Schwer? Priscilla Yi stared fixedly at the small portrait. As if her soul had been sucked out of her body. Only when Alden Chi ascends the throne will he clear Elder Schwer of his false charges and exonerate him. I continued, if you become Empress, you'll be even more helpful in making that happen. After your marriage, his favoritism toward me is actually beneficial to you after all. He's not the one you have feelings for. I paused deliberately. Priscilla Yi's face turned deathly pale in an instant. I'd guessed right, glancing at the sky. I shifted the topic sharply. But the one you do have feelings for is currently beneath your husband. Priscilla Yi clapped her hands over her ears abruptly. Stop it, I don't believe you. Realizing she'd slipped up, she flusteredly corrected herself. No, I don't understand what you're talking about. I suppressed my smile, stood up, and prepared to take my leave. Go to the side door of the Diligent Governance Pavilion. Send Ewing a few times, and you'll understand. Yet more than 10 days passed, and the East Courtyard remained eerily quiet as if I had never been there that day. Could it be that Ewing was incompetent and had missed her chance? Why haven't we seen Ewing in days? I asked Baoyang. She was holding Theodore on the veranda, teasing a parrot. Oh, her, she replied. She goes every day to ask Miss Schwer to come chat with the Crown Princess. But the Schwer family's son and daughter-in-law left last month, and Miss Schwer always says she's too busy attending to Elder Schwer's illness to come. Sigh. Priscilla Yi still wanted to ask Iris Schwer for clarification. She truly wouldn't give up until she hit the wall. By the way, where's His Highness? I asked casually. Baoyan's expression flickered for a moment. She mumbled, busy with important matters, I suppose. He'll come see you once he's free. She pulled down her sleeve. Hiding a jade bracelet that hadn't been there the day before, Baoyang had been sold into the Eastern Palace by her elder brother. Her family was so poor they could barely keep the pot boiling. Her brothers relied on her salary to get by. When Alden Chi had brought me back to the capital, I'd been afraid of gossip, and since I was just a lowly concubine with no influence, I'd only kept the eager Baoyang, dismissing the other maids and servants. When I gave birth to Theodore, she'd been even more overjoyed than I was. If only you could climb higher in status, she'd cooed, hugging Theodore tightly. Who knows, he might even be the next crown prince someday. I'd been so shocked that I'd ignored the pain of my postpartum wounds to cover her mouth. The rule was, establish the legitimate son first. If there is no legitimate son, establish the eldest. If word of her comment got out, people would either laugh at me, a former courtesan, for dreaming of becoming empress, or accuse me of cursing Priscilla Yi for being unable to bear a son. I didn't mind that Baoyang was only attentive to me because I was favored, but if she ever started looking down on me once my favor faded, I'd have to be on guard. Your Highness, I thought you were. Why are you here? Baoyang exclaimed. Turning to the courtyard gate, she hastily set Theodore down. After days of absence, Alden Chi stumbled into the hall, reeking of alcohol. He collapsed onto me. Baoyang and I had to drag and haul him to the bed. With my mentor's help, we finally persuaded the old diehards in the Imperial Guards. He mumbled, a triumphant smile tugging at his lips. Go make a bowl of sobering soup. I told Baoyang, make it strong. Alden Chi rambled on, lost in his own world. When this is done, your family will have the merit of supporting the new emperor. I'll make you a noble consort, even empress. Who dares to say no? His eyes were hazy with intoxication as he stroked my face gently, as if holding a fragile treasure. My chest felt as heavy as a pile of boulders. I could barely breathe. The you in his words was, of course, Iris Schwer, not me, the soon-to-be corpse. What about the crown princess? I asked, taking a deep breath, unwilling to give up. And your concubine, and your son? Alden Chi waved a hand dismissively. The Yi family's military power will be mine sooner or later. She married me for her family's sake. She deserves the consequences. As for Violet, his gaze flickered. Baoyang, from her courtyard, will give her a bowl of sterility-inducing soup on the night of the uprising. We'll say the calming soup was swapped by the Yi family. That way, I'll have an excuse to accuse the Yi family of a crime. He paused, then added, after all, she is the mother of my eldest son. And she's so ignorant, I'll let her and the child live in the palace, safe and sound. Why are you jealous of her? Earlier that day, I'd laughed at Priscilla Yee for being unable to let go, but if I could let go so easily, I wouldn't have asked that extra question. He took my hand and pressed a fleeting kiss to it. I felt as if I'd been burned. I yanked my hand back abruptly. Alden Chi froze, then shook his head hard, trying to focus on the person in front of him. A commotion broke out in the courtyard. His Highness clearly said he'd go to the study first to sober up. How did he end up wandering here? You must have used some underhanded tricks, Iris Schwez's maid snapped. Baoyang didn't dare disturb Alden Chi. She whispered, "What nonsense are you spouting? You're just a guest, who do you think you are? Telling His Highness where to go." The maid scoffed, "Our master, young lady, and several old friends are waiting for His Highness in the main hall to discuss matters. Why can't I care?" It wasn't until I opened the door that she reluctantly fell silent. I took the soup bowl from Baoyang and said to the maid, "Go tell them His Highness is resting here. They can discuss matters tomorrow." The maid bit her lip, but didn't dare argue with me. She huffed, gave a perfunctory bow, and left. Baoyang spat at her retreating back and muttered, "Just wait, when we're in the same palace, I'll show you who's in charge." I pretended not to hear. Turning back, I told her, "By the way, the Crown Princess's jade orchids will bloom soon. Keep an eye on Theodore, don't let him go near them." Baoyang nodded, her eyes darting imperceptibly. Unrequited love is always hard to let go of, but time waited for no one. I had to give Priscilla Yee a push. However, Alden Chi had planned to give me sterility-inducing soup. Had he changed his mind later? Or was someone else out to kill me? I stared at the sobering soup in my hand, deep in thought. When I woke up, Alden Chi was gone. Baoyang was gone too. My mind raced. I quickly picked up Theodore and rushed to knock on the east courtyard's door. Priscilla Yee didn't turn me away, but she also refused to mention Iris Schwer. Instead, she started a game of chess with me, making small talk now and then. Her chess skills were excellent, while mine were just a half-baked talent I'd learned to pass the time with clients. Every game ended with me being utterly defeated. "Don't be discouraged," she smiled for the first time. Her face showed the vitality that suited her age. "Our young lady's chess skills are rarely matched even among military commanders," Yuing said proudly. "Chess is connected to the art of war. The Duke even said it's a pity the young lady isn't a man otherwise. She'd definitely achieve great deeds and go down in history." Priscilla Yee's eyes darkened. She silently rearranged the chessboard. Theodore, clinging to the edge of the couch, piped up, "Then you can keep being empress. Let my mother be noble consort. Theodore will help you achieve great deeds." "Oh no, you little troublemaker." I moved quickly, shoving a pastry into his mouth. Priscilla Yee froze. "What did you say? He's just a 2-year-old talking nonsense." I laughed it off. Priscilla Yee was about to ask more when the courtyard gate suddenly banged loudly. A servant stood outside, looking distressed. "Your Highness, the Crown Princess's jade orchids are ruined. His Highness wants you to come see." When Priscilla Yee and I arrived at the garden one after another, Iris Schwer was whispering to Alden Chi. Seeing us, Alden Chi cleared his throat and stepped slightly away from her. Priscilla Yee acted as if she hadn't seen them. She hurried to the flower bed only to find that the buds that had been about to bloom the day before had all been uprooted, wilted, and lifeless. Iris Schwer hurried to her side. Urgency in her voice. "I wanted to check how the jade orchids you gave me were growing. When I saw they'd been destroyed like this, I immediately sent for His Highness and you." Priscilla Yee ignored her. She knelt down, picking up the orchids one by one to examine them. With each one she set down, her face grew paler. "It's him." The maid who'd argued with Baoyang earlier suddenly pointed at Theodore. "He already destroyed the jade orchids once before and got caught. He must be holding a grudge." Several servants who attended Iris Schwer also stuck out their necks, claiming Theodore had ruined the flower bed. Alden Chi's gaze slid past me and landed on Baoyang. "You're from the west courtyard," he said. "Tell us what happened." Baoyang twisted the hem of her dress, her words vague. I didn't see where our masters were all day. I don't know what they were doing." Iris Schwer's maid chimed in confidently. "That proves it. I saw this mother and son sneaking around the garden at noon." Priscilla Yee's eyes sharpened. "Noon? The maid shrank back under her gaze. Maybe afternoon, anyway. I saw them. Iris Schwer stepped over the scattered flower stalks and pulled Priscilla Yi to her feet. I know you don't want to argue with a concubine, sister, but today, she's not just humiliating me, she's humiliating you too. You can't let her off lightly. I looked at Baoyang, standing behind Iris Schwer. Her lips were pressed tightly together, the moment our eyes met. She looked away immediately. Even if I could find 10 or 8 people to testify for Theodore and me, their words would never be as convincing as Baoyang's, my own personal maid. The person administering justice here had never intended to seek justice for me in the first place. If Theodore and I hadn't spent the entire day playing chess with Priscilla Yi, we'd never be able to clear our names. No matter how many words we spoke, Priscilla Yi stared at Iris Schwer. Something in her eyes shattering piece by piece. Ying stepped forward, wanting to defend me, but Priscilla Yi raised her hand to stop her. Iris Schwer kept urging, "Sister, someone so petty and vicious doesn't deserve to serve His Highness any longer, even if you don't drive her out. She should never be promoted to secondary consort for the rest of her life." Alden Chi had always looked down on inner courtyard disputes. He stood far away, but when he heard this, he paused and interrupted. "She's at fault this time. But a punishment of copying scriptures in the Buddhist hall to repent is enough. There's no need to condemn her for life." Priscilla Yi finally tore her gaze away from Iris Schwer. She turned to me, her expression solemn. "You heard His Highness. Go to the Buddhist hall and copy the scriptures 1,000 times. You won't be allowed to come out until you've finished. You've failed to educate your son properly. Theodore will stay in the East Courtyard for now. When you've learned to be a proper mother, you can come back to raise him." Iris Schwer's sullen expression only softened slightly when she heard that Theodore was being taken away. I played along, pretending to be overcome with grief, though I couldn't squeeze out any tears, so I had to lower my head and cover my face. Theodore didn't understand what was happening, but his cries were far more sincere and heartfelt. Frankly, I was happy to hide away in the Buddhist hall for a few quiet days. Yet before midnight arrived, 3 people had already come to see me. The first was Baoyang. "I really didn't see you all day, miss," she sobbed, snot and tears streaming down her face as she begged for my forgiveness. "I was so scared, I didn't mean to say those things. It took all my effort to send her away." But before I could finish copying even one full scripture, the door was pushed open again. "Why is it so cold in here?" Alden Chi frowned. "I'll have someone send thick bedding," he said. Rubbing my hands to warm them, "You can just copy a few pages and stop. You don't have to take Yi's words seriously." I lowered my eyelashes, continuing to copy the scriptures stroke by stroke. "Where's Theodore?" Alden Chi fell silent for a long moment. "You won't treat him badly," he finally said. "I'll also send someone to keep an eye on him. Nothing will happen to him." "So you won't send him back to me?" I asked softly. "Is it because you're ashamed of my lowly background? Or are you just letting others take their anger out on us?" Alden Chi's expression darkened. "What kind of talk is that?" I lifted my eyes to meet his. "After all, from this morning until now, Your Highness hasn't even asked once whether Theodore and I really did it." The concern in Alden Chi's eyes vanished completely. "Does it matter?" he said coldly. His gaze as he looked at me was no different from how he looked at Baoyang, Ying, or even a flower or a tree. "You and Theodore have what you have today only because of my extraordinary kindness. You should remember your place. Some grievances, you just have to bear." After being with him for so many years, I finally heard the truth. After all, in his heart, I was no more than a stray cat or dog by the roadside. But what His Royal Highness the Crown Prince didn't know was that stray cats and dogs, once they'd endured too much cold and hunger, would do anything to fill their bellies and stay warm. I smiled bitterly and closed the door that Alden Chi had left wide open when he stormed off. I'd barely copied 2 more pages when a gust of wind swept through the room, scattering the paper across the floor. Ying slipped in quietly, pushing the door open cautiously. She laid out a table of pastries and warm porridge. Sighing deeply as she spoke, the Crown Princess set the garden on fire. She also tore up all the paper cuts on the windows. I rubbed my sore wrists. It hadn't been in vain to trick Iris Schwer into crying thief while being a thief herself. Iris Schwer had already held a grudge against me. A few days earlier, When Alden Chi had slipped away from under her nose to stay in the west courtyard, she must have been shocked and furious, to return to the capital, live a life of luxury again, and even become empress. Alden Chi was her only hope. For that, she'd even exploited Priscilla Yi's unspeakable feelings for her. Handing the Yi family over to Alden Chi without hesitation, since Iris Schwer had entered the Eastern Palace, Alden Chi had been glued to her side day and night. The only thing that unsettled her was probably me, a former courtesan who'd sneaked in while she and Alden Chi were separated. Now that Baoyang had become Alden Chi's spy and knew I was going to be reduced to a barren, unfavored woman, she'd been eager to curry favor with Iris Schwer. After I'd planted the idea in her head, she to destroy the jade orchids, inciting Priscilla Yi to conflict with me. Iris Schwer knew better than anyone how much Priscilla Yi cared for her and how much she cherished those jade orchids. She would have jumped at the plan. Alden Chi would have turned a blind eye to it too. She and Alden Chi were putting on a show, but weren't Priscilla Yi and I doing the same? The only difference was that my goal was to make Priscilla Yi witness her sincere feelings being trampled into mud by the person she loved, and I still hadn't told her about another crucial matter. We were two grasshoppers tied to the same rope. We couldn't afford to be divided. No one's outside, Yuing whispered. Miss, come with me to the East Courtyard. The Crown Princess wants to see you. I pointed to the stack of rice paper in front of me and declined. We have to see this act through. We'll talk in a few days. Deep down, I felt a twinge of guilt toward Priscilla Yi. She tended to that garden of jade orchids every day, through wind and rain, from autumn to spring, for over half a year. Besides, she was as sharp as ice. She'd probably already figured out what was going on. Yuing came to urge me again and again, patiently waiting until I'd finished copying a whole stack of scriptures. Now His Highness and Miss Schwer don't even bother hiding anymore, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. So many maids and servants have walked in on them. I calculated the time. In the previous life Theodore had spoken of. This was probably when Priscilla Yi had finally realized Iris Schwer's insincerity. But perhaps Iris Schwer had sweet-talked her, or avoided her altogether. By the time Priscilla Yi woke up to the fact that she'd been manipulated, it had been too late to do anything. This time, though, it would be different. The candlelight in the Buddhist hall dimmed. I trimmed the knotted wick, looking out at the pale sky. I even found myself looking forward to the night when I would die with blood oozing from my 7 orifices. Rebellion, Priscilla Yi repeated numbly. I didn't mention Theodore's rebirth. Instead, I told her everything, from his dreamlike words to the conversations I'd overheard between Alden Chi and Han Li, and between Alden Chi and Iris Schwer. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Priscilla Yi asked, half believing. I answered honestly. How was I supposed to know which side you were on? If you'd listened to everything Iris Schwer said, I would have been walking right into a tiger's den. Her cheeks flushed. She coughed awkwardly. This matter is too serious. I have to inform my father. Priscilla Yi quickly wrote a secret message, one that no one else would be able to understand, but hesitated to sign her name at the end. The Emperor and his son are turning against each other, she said, massaging her forehead in distress. I'm putting my father in an impossible position. The Emperor has long been wary of the Yi family's military achievements and prestige, but with the borders in turmoil, he has no choice but to let my father command the army to suppress the Western rebels. Besides, the Emperor has been seriously ill for a long time. If my family gets involved in this, we'll end up offending everyone, no matter who we help. I didn't understand any of this. I grew anxious. So you're just going to let yourself be made a deposed empress as soon as you enter the palace? Are you going to watch your family fall apart for the rest of your life? I paused, then added, or does your father want to take the throne himself? Priscilla Yi's eyes widened in shock. Don't speak such nonsense. The Yi family has been loyal for 3 generations. There's not a single traitor among us. Besides, right now, foreign powers are eyeing our country like tigers. Civil unrest in the court will only lead to disaster. I paced around the room like an ant on a hot pan. So we just wait to die while the Schwer family reaps the benefits. When 2 tigers fight, the third party gains. I stopped in my tracks. What if your family is that third party? She thought for a moment, then understood what I meant. On the night of the uprising, secretly send a small detachment of the Western Expeditionary Army to surround the capital. At dawn, the old emperor would abdicate the throne, the crown prince would ascend in tears, the morning sun would rise as usual. As for why the Western Expeditionary Army had come, naturally, they'd been ordered by the new emperor to wipe out the traitors. The piles of dead bodies of the secret soldiers on the outskirts of the capital would be the evidence. The Xue family will be the traitors, I said, placing a black chess piece in the center of the board. Priscilla Yi stared at that piece, her eyelashes fluttering slightly. When Elder Xue came to the capital to seek medical treatment, she said, seemingly out of nowhere, the emperor only allowed him to come alone, but Iris wrote to me, saying she was worried about my old injury. Priscilla Yi gave a bitter smile and pulled down her collar, revealing a hideous scar. It snaked from her chin down to her chest, though with face powder covering it. It wasn't obvious from a distance. My mother died when I was young, she murmured. My father raised me by his side. Life in the military camp was harsh, that's where I got this scar. Later, my father found out that I had no interest in men, but instead had feelings for women. He was furious. He sent me back to the capital, ordering me to set my heart right and learn to be a virtuous wife and mother. The noble ladies in the capital laughed at me for being rude and crude. They also mocked my scar for being ugly. Only Iris was kind to me, she even said. She was the same as me, but she's been here for 63 days. And not once has she mentioned my old injury. Her voice grew softer and softer, but her fingers still lingered on the black chess pieces in the box. My eyelids twitched violently. Priscilla Yi had been confused about love and desire. She'd probably thought of herself as a freak, something unspeakable, and Iris Xue had been the only warmth she'd ever known in her life. I didn't have time to wait for her to heal from her broken heart. There were only 20 days left until the uprising. If she didn't send her letter tonight, the Western Expeditionary Army would never make it in time to help. The courtyard was silent. Yuying, who was guarding the door, was probably dozing off too. I pressed my lips together. I'd seen too many people in the flower house who'd been driven to despair by unrequited love. Courtesans might not be good for much, but we knew 1,000 ways to help people forget their sorrows. I snuffed out the candle, with one hand. I pulled her neck toward me. The chessboard was knocked askew. The black pieces clattered to the floor and disappeared. My lips left hers, trailing softly along the scar I'd memorized, leaving a trail of tiny kisses. With my other hand, I followed the gentle curves of her body. The thin, trembling figure in my arms gradually relaxed. The faint sound of dripping water came from under the eaves. The last of the snow was melting, turning into threads of spring water. Why's the light out? Yuying's voice came. I'll go get another candle. She pushed the door open with a creak. Priscilla Yi held her breath, frozen. I stood up calmly. The old wick turned black. It's time for a new one. Wait. Priscilla Yi called out softly, stopping me. It won't be hard for the Yi family to take control of the capital and wipe out the Xue family. But if Alden Qi swallows his anger for now, he'll definitely join forces with others to strike back later. We need a long-term plan. I straightened the golden hairpin in her hair and leaned in close. He won't have a later. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, who considered giving me a bowl of sterility-inducing soup an act of extraordinary mercy. Yet it was this cruelty that forced me to think on my feet. The sense of contraceptive soups, abortion potions, and sterility-inducing brews had lingered in the red light districts for years. Every brothel kept a few such prescriptions handy. It was common for new girls to spend their days squatting in the kitchen, boiling these medicines. Among them, sterility-inducing soup was the most toxic. Though its name suggested it only robbed one of fertility, it actually damaged the internal organs, leaving both men and women weak and wasting away rapidly, making conception impossible. Of course, for those with fragile constitutions, a single bowl could be fatal within a year or two. Most cheap brothels used it simply for convenience. That night, when I poured out the sobering soup Baoyang had brought and replaced it with sterility-inducing soup, feeding it spoonful by spoonful to the drunk Alden Qi, a memory suddenly flashed. The first time we'd met, he'd fed me medicine just like this. What if you'd never kept your position as Crown Prince? I whispered, wiping the soup from the corner of his mouth. What if you'd stayed in Xuanyang as an idle prince? What would we be like now? Unfortunately, there were no what ifs. Han Li visited more and more frequently. Alden Chi spent longer and longer away from the palace. Priscilla Yi remained confined to her quarters to reflect. Theodore stayed safely in the east courtyard. I forgave Baoyang, and we coexisted in the west courtyard, each harboring our own secrets. Days of calm passed. By the time I noticed a few unfamiliar faces lingering in the inner courtyard, the night we'd all been waiting for had arrived quietly. The drum struck 3 times. The moon hung high in the sky. Tonight was unusually quiet, making the sound of footsteps in the courtyard all the more distinct. The door slid open silently. A light emerald-embroidered shoe stepped in first. I lifted my eyes slightly, meeting the gaze of the person who'd entered. Iris Xue stood in the hall, her lips curved into a confident smile. Beside her was Baoyang, holding a tray. Behind them stood 2 burly old women. Miss Violet, Baoyang stammered, holding the tray out to me. You already have a son to rely on. Drinking this bowl of sterility-inducing soup won't cost you anything. Miss Xue and His Highness are in love, we'll all have to serve her in the future. I lowered my head, sniffing the contents. I looked up at Iris Xue. This isn't contraceptive soup, is it? Her smile froze. She scowled. Cut the nonsense. Drink it. I sighed. You took the sterility-inducing soup His Highness ordered and replaced it with throat-sealing poison. When he asks, are you planning to frame Baoyang for it? Baoyan's face turned ashen, her legs gave way, and she fell to the floor, soup bowl and all. Idiot. Iris Xue's eyes flashed with anger. She kicked Baoyang repeatedly with her embroidered shoes. Hurry up and get another bowl. Baoyang sobbed, cowering. I don't dare. I thought it was just sterility-inducing soup. Iris Xue let out a cold snort. So what if I poison you? Did you really think you mattered to him? In a few hours, His Highness will be emperor. I'll be his childhood sweetheart who suffered for him. My father will be the meritorious official who helped him seize the throne. What are you, a courtesan who sells smiles? You'd only sully his bed and stain the bricks of the harem. Your son will have to give up his position too. My child will be the rightful heir someday. One of the old women panted as she brought in another bowl of medicine. Pin her down and pour it down her throat, Iris Xue said lazily. And what about me? The slender figure stepped out from behind the screen. Iris Xue gasped, as if seeing a ghost in broad daylight. Sister Yi. She forced a smile, neither sad nor happy. Why are you in this lowly woman's room? You told me, Priscilla Yi said softly, that once I became empress and cleared the Xue family's name with His Majesty, you'd enter the palace as a female official. You said you'd never marry, you'd stay with me forever. So why are you talking about your child being the rightful heir? Iris Xue's face paled, then flushed. Finally, she let out a dry laugh. Alden Chi and I have been in love since we were children. My family even suffered because of him. If things had gone differently, the position of crown princess and later, empress would have always been mine. I lied to you, yes. But only to increase Alden Chi's chances of ascending the throne, and if he wants the Yi family to hand over their military power, that's not my fault. She softened her tone. Sister. We're just women. The right path for us is to learn to be virtuous wives and mothers, to support our husbands and raise our children. Go back quietly. I'll make sure Alden Chi spares you and the Yi family. Priscilla Yi's eyes were dark as ink. She didn't move. You're really going to help this lowly woman? Iris Xue shrieked. Footsteps approached from outside the courtyard. Before Iris Xue could react, a team of tall, armored soldiers flooded into the yard. She stared blankly at their uniforms, so different from the Eastern Palace guards and Imperial soldiers. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Captain Yi has surrounded the Imperial Palace, the leading soldier said, bowing to Priscilla Yi. All the traitors camped on the outskirts of the capital have been wiped out. Captain Yi, he must have been Priscilla Yi's cousin. Earlier, she'd said her father had replied that military commanders shouldn't return to the capital without authorization. So he'd sent her cousin with a small group of elite soldiers instead. Good, Priscilla Yi said. Leave half the men here to guard. The rest will come with me to the palace. She glanced past Iris Xue, who looked like a fish out of water, and pressed a token into my hand. Keep this safe. Everyone will obey your orders. I can't. I tried to push her hand away. All my life, I'd been nothing but a toy to amuse men. I'd never commanded anyone before. She smiled, the same smile she'd worn when defeating me soundly in chess. You can, only then can Theodore grow up healthy, achieve great things, and go down in history as the son of two empress dowagers who ruled together in harmony. I gripped the token tightly, sitting quietly in the courtyard. I ignored the shouts, curses, and pleas of the people locked inside. Beyond the inner courtyard, the capital remained peaceful, just another ordinary night, until the eastern sky turned pale. The gate of the eastern palace was knocked. A dozen soldiers, dressed the same as those Priscilla ye had left with me, stood outside. At the sight of the token, they bowed deeply. It's done, they said. The crown princess asks that you and the young prince come to the palace. Yuying hurried over with Theodore in her arms. I held him close as the soldiers escorted us onto horseback, leading us through unfamiliar streets and alleys. Some early risers, yawning as they removed their shop shutters, peeked curiously at the woman and child surrounded by soldiers only to shrink back at a sharp shout. The towering city gates appeared ahead, their eaves curving like the wings of a phoenix, like a palace in the sky. Heavy gates opened one after another. At each gate stood soldiers in neat armor, bowing respectfully as we passed, all because of the token in my hand. Such a small token, so much power, I murmured. The officer beside me smiled. Military orders are absolute. Even turning 3,000 traitors on the outskirts of the capital into a sea of blood only takes one small token. The black token suddenly felt scalding. I almost dropped it. That crazy woman, Priscilla Yee, how dare she give me something so important? Sweat soaked the token in my palm. A strange sensation spread from my hand to my limbs, tingling, electric. All those years in the brothel, fighting over men, even a prince as perfect as Alden Chi. But this was what they'd really been fighting for, the power to command with a single word, the power to decide life and death. Fame and wealth were nothing but tools in its service. I ran my finger over the token, cold metal, yet more precious than any pearl or jade I'd ever touched. I lost count of how many steps we climbed before finally reaching the Grand Hall of Supreme Harmony. The Imperial Guards had all been subdued by the Western Expeditionary Army. Elder Xue knelt among sword-wielding soldiers, trembling like a leaf. Beside him lay a blooded head, probably Han Li's. Alden Chi and Priscilla Yee stood on either side of the empty throne. I couldn't remember when I'd last seen Alden Chi, but he looked far more haggard, even a few grey hairs dotted his temples. I'd probably given him too much of the sterility-inducing soup, just to be safe. Order the Western Expeditionary Army to withdraw at once. Alden Chi clenched his fists, his teeth gritted. I promise you the position of Empress. I will not break my word. Priscilla Yee's tone was deferential. The Western Expeditionary Army will obey the Imperial Edict and withdraw, but just now, what I did. Alden Chi's eyes bulged with rage. He lowered his voice. Weren't you and Iris close friends? Must you drive her to her death? You can be Empress, and she can be a concubine. No, even a concubine of the 4th rank, or a concubine of the 5th rank. Would that not be enough? Priscilla Yee lifted her head, her voice clear and loud. What is your Majesty talking about? An army must have a just cause for marching. The Western Expeditionary Army came to the capital to suppress traitors. How has this become me driving the Xue clan to extinction? If the Xue clan is not traitorous, then who is? Elder Xue, panicked and confused, suddenly screamed at the top of his lungs. Your Highness, I did everything for you. The secret soldiers on the outskirts of the capital have nothing to do with me. Captain Yi reacted quickly, knocking him unconscious with the hilt of his sword. Good, if he didn't take the blame, would Alden Chi really admit to plotting rebellion? Alden Chi's gaze turned dark. After a long silence, he spoke. Very well. The Xue clan committed treason and rebelled. Their crime is unpardonable. But Iris took no part in this. You must spare her life. Priscilla Yee's expression wavered. She looked at me. Noble ladies like her would never understand sometimes. Death is a mercy. I gave her a silent nod of approval. Priscilla Yee nodded in return. Alden Chi collapsed to the ground as if all his strength had been drained. Eunuchs and palace maids swarmed around him, helping him into the inner hall in a fluster. A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. The coronation ceremony was held immediately after the traitorous clan was executed. The ceremony to appoint the empress was held on the same day, along with the investiture of concubines. Naturally, Priscilla Yi became the empress of the central palace. I was conferred the title of noble consort Shu. A dazed-looking woman named Jianglana was conferred the title of concubine Zhao, yet after ascending the throne, Alden Chi's condition deteriorated rapidly. He suffered from dizziness and splitting bone pain, often unable to attend court. The imperial physicians always shook their heads, their expressions evasive, unable to offer a cure. In the end, the ministers had no choice but to assist in governing, while the empress temporarily took charge of state affairs. Theodore was sent to the Imperial Academy. He only came to spend time with me in his leisure. One sunny afternoon, Priscilla Yi was so tired that she fell asleep at her desk, which was piled high with official documents. I stood on the veranda of the central palace, gazing at the calm, mirror-like surface of Tay Lake, lamenting how dull and boring life had become. From the corner of my eye, I saw a figure sneaking into the emperor's bedroom. It was Iris Schwer, now known as Jianglana, who was not allowed to move about freely. Oh, right, she went by Jianglana now. I'd almost forgotten she was still in the palace. A sudden wave of curiosity prompted me to follow her quietly. I shushed the palace maid at the door, who was about to greet me, then tiptoed inside. The sound of suppressed sobbing drifted out. Jianglana choked out her words. "Your Majesty, that poisonous woman has seized control of all state affairs. Won't you do something about it? I can barely protect myself." Alden Chi's voice was hoarse. I moved closer to hear him clearly. The rustle of clothing grew louder. Jianglana urged him anxiously. "I'll bear you a son, I'll bear you many sons. You promised me that only our son is worthy of inheriting the throne." Alden Chi coughed repeatedly. His voice even took on a weepy tone. "Calm down, it's useless, it's all useless. I can no longer perform as a man, and my days are numbered." The other day, when I'd attended to him in bed, Alden Chi's gaze had lingered on the half-new, pale lotus-colored undergarment I was wearing. "This is the dress you wore in Xuanyang," he'd said. "Why do you still keep it, even as noble consort Shu?" I blew on the medicine I was holding. Clothes are like old friends, better kept. People, however, are better when new. Alden Chi propped himself up, a helpless look on his face. "Are you mocking me? Are you still angry about me and Lana?" he sighed. "Her rank is now lower than yours. I have never neglected you because of her. She is all alone in this world. You should be more kind to her." Never neglected me because of her. I hadn't exposed his original plan for the night of the uprising. Did he really take me for a fool? Besides, Iris Schwer had once tried to kill me. In Theodore's nightmare, our mother and son had indeed died because of her. What if it were me who was all alone in this world, and she was the one serving you? I asked, a half-smile on my face. "Would you beg her to be kind to me?" Alden Chi downed the medicine in one gulp, grimacing. "It's so bitter. You wouldn't, even if I died with blood oozing from my 7 orifices. Even if Theodore wasted away and died in the depths of the palace, you would only scold her a few times in passing. Human affection is the most unreasonable thing in the world. But human affection is also irrelevant. Staking one's life on the affection of a single person is a gamble that someone as insignificant as me cannot afford to lose." Alden Chi's hand brushed over my hair, sliding down to the ends. His breathing grew heavy, yet he remained powerless. I leaned against his chest, listening to his weak heartbeat, and sighed in relief. Alden Chi pinched my chin. "The Imperial Academy of Medicine is useless. Tomorrow, I will summon famous doctors from among the common people. When I recover, I'll make you beg for mercy." It seemed the famous doctor I'd sent him, taking the opportunity, was not as tactful as the imperial physicians. He'd told Alden Chi the truth. Jianglana stared at him in disbelief. "No, if you can no longer perform as a man, why keep me in the palace? How am I supposed to become empress and take revenge?" She stumbled toward the door, screaming hysterically. "Will Priscilla Yi spare me if you die? And that Violet, they'll tear me to pieces." She ran out of the hall, shouting incoherently, seemingly yelling about her father and brothers. When news of concubine Zhao's death by drowning in the lake reached me, I was preparing a birthday gift for Priscilla Yi. Yu Ying led me to the central palace. Priscilla Yi stood dazed on the veranda, a yellowed paper-cut portrait clenched in her palm. She turned around, awkwardly wiping her eyes. I wanted to talk to her earlier, but I was always too busy. Now that she's dead, we should show her respect, posthumously confer her the title of noble consort. A thought struck me. Theodore's dream had come true in this way. Yu Ying hesitated, then added, and His Majesty, upon hearing the news. He was so grief-stricken that he fainted. Priscilla Yi rubbed her forehead, her voice sharp with impatience. Then send for the imperial physicians. I cannot cure illnesses. Yu Ying retreated silently. I walked around to Priscilla Yi's back, kneading her shoulders with just the right amount of force. Your Majesty, you have to support both the imperial court and the harem. How can you manage with only Yu Ying and a few young maids to take care of you? Priscilla Yi narrowed her eyes, letting out a tired sigh. But I still have you, don't I? I leaned in, whispering in her ear. I only know a little about serving others. I cannot truly understand your heart. Priscilla Yi opened her eyes in confusion. Before her stood 4 beautiful women, walking gracefully. I had searched the finest brothels in the capital, carefully selecting these lovely companions for her. When they heard they would be serving a woman, they were overjoyed, exactly what they'd hoped for. Whatever lingering feelings she had for her old love would be forgotten by Priscilla Yi in half a cup of tea. I had the sense to close the door and leave. The sunset glowed a deep purple, dyeing the surface of Tay Lake with shimmering light as if nothing had ever happened. Mother, Theodore had just finished school. He ran toward me, overjoyed. Slow down, I said, hurrying to meet him. Slow down, our days are still long.